want to welcome you to today's presentation. We are so excited to have these two experts to talk to you all about community-based partnerships. We want to spend today to just really let them talk about their expertise as well as just also hear from you with regards to some of the barriers you might be facing with doing community outreach, whether you're from a rural clinic, or urban clinic outreach team. We're here to learn from one another's innovations and challenges in screening collaborations. So today we're going to really just we're going to dive a little deep, but we're going to make sure that we address the basics around really talking to the community, really trying to gain partnerships from various people, what it takes, and how to listen to those that are in the community that are the ones that you're trying to help. And also, I do want to welcome everyone from our team, our technical and training team. My name is Dr. Nikhil Dixon Weathersby, and my leader of the TNTA team, Tanya Davis, is right here. And then we have Jessica Roberson, who's also on our team. Augustine is here. I don't know if he's able to wave or not. I'm not sure if any other BMG or 5D. I think Dr. O is here. So I just want to say welcome from our team and this HRSA funded webinar. And there will be many more, and we will talk about that at the end today. So by the end of this session, you will be able to discuss the basics on community outreach. As I mentioned before, you will learn from your peers on some of the things that they have done. You will be able to learn from the experts about some of the experiences they have and what they have observed that has worked with regards to community outreach. So I've said the expert several times now, so I'm going to go ahead and do the speaker intro. So we have Elizabeth Hart, and she is a public health strategist and community partnership expert with a distinguished background in outreach. And I'm going to just do a summary because she's going to come in and she's going to also give her background and introduction. And then we have Ben Odell, who is a management analyst at HHS Partnership for Center of Faith, I want to say. And Ben has been recognized for his faith-based community outreach, and he's going to talk about that a little bit. So I want to actually let Elizabeth and Ben do their intros now, and then we'll move on. So Elizabeth, I'll let you go first by doing your introduction.
Thank you so much for having me, and hello to everyone. I actually see a familiar name in the contact list. One of my former staffers is on, so happy to have her. As was mentioned, my name is Elizabeth Hart. I am the former director of the Office of Faith-Based and Community Engagement at the Tennessee Department of Health. I have a 20-plus year career in public health communications and community engagement, talking about highlights of my career because I want to get to the meat and potatoes of this conversation today. I've led a multitude of campaigns and activities at the Department of Health. I led our Health Disparities Task Force, which started at the top of COVID with about 50 individuals, leaders from across the state of Tennessee. It grew to 2,500 individuals by the time I left. So it was no longer a task force. It became an advisory group. I've also launched several different campaigns, 3 of which earned myself an Emmy nomination and my team an Emmy nomination. And then finally, as part of a COVID outreach effort and some of our engagement, I was the executive producer of a documentary telling the stories of how COVID impacted Black and Brown communities here in the state of Tennessee. So I will pass the microphone to Ben.
Thanks, Elizabeth, and thanks to everybody who helped pull this call together, as well as everyone who's joined us today. We're so glad to be with you all. Again, my name is Ben Odell. I'm with what's now called the Center for Faith. This was the office that was relaunched by the president on February 7th. And we work to build partnerships between faith-based, community-based, and houses of worship, or all those different types of organizations to better serve individuals, families, and communities. So that connects us with the mission of health services, connects us to encouraging faith and community-based groups to get involved in those spaces. And we're glad to work closely with HRSA more broadly as we encourage faith-based and community-based collaborations in all different areas of health and social services. So glad to be with you all today and share a little bit about that 20-year experience here of what we've learned, what's effective, and how we can help support your important work in health screening across the country. So glad to be with you all.
Thank you. Thank you so much. But we have different questions that have already been produced. And if you do have a question, we're going to ask you to put it in the chat. You can also raise your hand and we can unmute you. All right. So the first question is, what roles do community partners play in screening?
So I'm happy to kick that off. So at the Department of Health, well, let me just say to answer the question, they play a huge role. You really rely on your community partners to get the education out there, to talk about screenings, the importance of screenings, but then also scheduling those screenings. There are many times during my time at the health department, both at the state level and at the local level. I worked in Memphis for many years as well, where I had to utilize those community partners to first educate. Even before we educate, we built the trust, right? So you actually reach out to those organizations, you establish these relationships. And I'm not talking about, walking in their door and instantly saying, hey, we've got this and we got that. They need to know who you are, right? They need to understand what it is that you can bring to their congregations. And we're talking about faith-based organizations, right? So understanding, and I believe in data, right? Data, depending on how you say it, right? I believe in data and looking at the congregation. How old are they? What is their socioeconomic background, their education background? Where do they live? What does their housing look like? That's also going to help you to figure out the best way to go about your approach. So you base it on data. Start building these relationships, having these conversations with the leaders. We had a conversation earlier that, we jokingly say the pastor is not always the greatest person to talk to, right? You've got the first lady, you have the health ministries, and even the executive assistants, the receptionists that sit at the front desk of the church. But establishing those relationships and then bringing the education, and with the education, then you promote those screenings and then you set up a health fair. What do you say, Ben?
Elizabeth, that's so good. I might flip this to the script a little bit. What role does screening play in the community? Like okay, so ask some questions. Like who has some situations and challenges? Maybe there's someone in your community, a faith leader who is a cancer survivor. That might be one champion who would help you connect to other faith communities and leaders across the community because that's important to them. Maybe they had a congregant who had a challenge and they walked alongside that individual, maybe a deacon, maybe a lay leader in the church who was really important. Ask those stories, connect to those conversations, and maybe even think, maybe it's not the first time you ask about how you can bring your cancer screening. Maybe it's not the second meeting. Maybe it's the third meeting where you start to talk about your work because they are going to start caring about what you care about because you care about them. No one will care about you unless you care about them. And so, how can you communicate that strategy? How can you communicate to them that they're important so that they take the work that you're doing as important? And how can you build? I loved what Elizabeth said, just to echo it. How do you build that relationship of trust? Change happens at the speed of trust. It happens across the strength of that bridge that you build to that community-based organization. And once you build a strong bridge, you can carry more water across that bridge. You can do more with that group when the bridge is strong and the relationship is healthy. Let me lastly say, most leaders in the community, they're rich in relationships. And so if you're going to be one of those relationships, you've got to ask, like, how do I invest in this relationship so that it becomes something that is worth them investing in as well? So it's not just a two-way street or a one-way street of you going out to the community. It's the community coming back across that bridge over to work you're doing and partnering with you across that strength of the trust that you develop to facilitate whatever health outcome that you're seeking to implement.
Thank you. Thank you. Great answers. Great answers. Not sure if any of our attendees had any comments or questions. Again, put it in the chat, raise your hand. I'll unmute you. Just let us know. But we're going to move on to the next question. So many of our health centers, as we have been helping them with technical assistance, have been discussing various barriers that they face. So what barriers with community partnerships can people face, and what are some ways of overcoming them?
So, one thing that I can say, especially in the public health world, right, is we would always promote plain language. A lot of times we talk real high level, right? We've got all the acronyms for the alphabet soup, right? We have
Mhm.
all the language that we talk about in a clinic, right? But on the community level, they may not understand that or may not know and put the two and two together, right? So first of all, it's the language barrier, both in medical language, but also language, spoken language. So for example, if you're going into a community where Spanish is the first language, then you probably should have a staff member whose first language is Spanish. Or in other languages, we have Arabic here in Tennessee. We have French. We have a lot of African tribes that are here in the state of Tennessee. So French is that base language. So understanding that community first, that's a first barrier. Understanding transportation. So sometimes, as Ben was saying, you're going to have to go to them perhaps. Maybe they don't have the opportunity to come to you. So figuring out the best ways or the most opportune times for you to visit with those communities. And so overcoming that as well. And then how do you keep your partnership strong over time? So I mentioned it in my brief bio that we started the Health Disparities Task Force. And that was something that was started during COVID that we had every other week or so, just kind of updates about what was happening in the pandemic. Well, it turned into a weekly meeting. So for about 3 years running, and it's still going after I've since left that position, every single Thursday at 1 p.m. Central Time, there is a meeting that holds all those individuals. Now, not all of them show up, but it's an opportunity every single week for them to have a full hour with the state office to ask questions, to get additional information about things that are happening. We talk about building those relationships and building trust. That is something that those individuals loved, and they knew that having that contact with the organization and with those leaders really, really helped that building that relationship. And in addition to that, every Friday, there was an email that was sent out from my office. We called it the top 10 emails, or the top 10 updates of the week, which included funding opportunities and other webinar opportunities such as this one. Again, building on that trust, being that two-way street. We were not only learning from them, but they were learning from us. And so being able to overcome some of those barriers, obviously funding being a big one, right? So as soon as we would find a funding opportunity, we made sure that single week that we learned about it, it went out to those communities to try to address some of those barriers that they were having in their organizations.
That
Elizabeth,
that is great, Elizabeth. Oh my gosh. I know Ben, you're ready to jump in. I was gonna say that I can't wait to learn a lot. I want to dive a little bit deeper into that, but Ben go and then we'll keep it going.
no, these are such great points Nixon Weatherby and Elizabeth are making. Let me just do two more points real quick. One, I think is to that language point. I think we need to think in terms of the language the community is using rather than our language. So one of the things you want to think about is how is the community talking about this? So if we're focused on cancer screening, the community might not be focused on how to do cancer screening, but they do care about people not getting cancer. So if you go out and you say cancer screening and we're working on cancer and we're doing all these things and here's what you do, but they're like, wait, I don't know what you're talking about. So if you say, hey, do you want to help people not get cancer? When you
Yeah.
frame it in terms of people first rather than policy or medical approach first, other leaders who care and focus on people will focus on that with you. And so you got to think about how you can approach that. And that initial language can be huge because we talk about how to keep your partnership strong over time. If you start with a language that's alienating from someone, if that's not the type of language they use, that's not starting strong because they don't even know where you're starting at. So you got to find that language that you work with them. Then I think as you build the capacity of organizations and community-based partners to participate, I would also encourage you to think about how you build capacity within your own system to work with those community partners. So say as a part of that community outreach, you're building that capacity, you're working with that partner. But say a member from one of those congregations comes to your organization, has a negative experience because you aren't building that internal capacity to work with that community partner, that's going to reflect negatively on that community-based partnership. So as you're building the capacity to work with your partners, make sure you're building the capacity of your system to work with those partners so that you all around have these cyclical, beneficial relationships that are making the partnership that much stronger so that it's sustained to that point.
I want to piggyback also. Thank you for that, Ben. I want to give an example, and it's because I see one of my staffers, my former staffers on here. So we had a situation here in Tennessee at the time, this is several years ago, where the data was showing that there was a very high rate of African American women who were being diagnosed with stage 3 and stage 4 breast cancer. So we were looking at the data. Remember, I told you data is our jam, right? So we're looking at the data and figuring out why in this particular community, in this particular county, is the rate so high, and why are they stage 3 and stage 4? Well, it turns out that many of those individuals were not aware of a program that's offered at the Department of Health that if you meet the qualifications, then you can get a free mammogram, correct? So then reached out to that faith organization, one of the faith organizations that was there, that was smack dab in the middle of that zip code that was seeing that data. And we said, hey, we're seeing some information. We'd love to talk to you about it and how we can be a resource. So from that conversation, we started building the relationship with that individual, with that pastor and that church. Fast forward about, I think maybe 2 months, 3 months, we actually were able to have a health fair and get some individuals that were coming in to then get their screening. So kind of pretty much what both things that Ben and I are talking about, establishing that relationship, but also using that data to say, hey, this is a community that maybe we weren't paying attention to before, but now we certainly are. And so now we're able to get them the resources. And now these ladies know there is a program available at no cost if they qualify to then get their mammograms. And so hopefully they either have no diagnosis, or it's a stage 0 or a stage 1.
Thank you. Thank you so much for that. I think these were our major questions so far, unless any attendees have any questions, but I do want to dive a little deep into, again, we meet with health centers a lot for technical assistance that we help these health centers do. And one of the things they mention is the capability to do outreach, and them not having enough staff members to do this outreach. What is a way to get around that, or how to address that barrier of not having enough staff to do outreach?
Elizabeth, I'll go first on this one real quick. I've been saying, who do you know? Who do you know who know people? And then who do you not know? So first, who do you know? So maybe who do you know on staff? Who is your neighbor? Maybe you have a clergy member, somebody who attends a house of worship that's a neighbor that you can say, hey, tell me more about this congregation. Let's say even if who do you know, you can go. I joke with people, these houses of worship actively ask for people to come and visit. But you don't even have to come and visit anymore. You can just check out their YouTube channel and just see what they're talking about. See some of the things they're describing. Watch the announcements that they have, right? These are easy access points for maybe adding someone to who you know. Then secondly, who do you know who knows someone? So maybe there are individuals on staff, and look at all levels of your staff and all. There may be nurses. Let me say, 67% of individuals find religion really important of some form or fashion. That means that within half of your staff, there's someone who finds religion important. Maybe that house of worship that they attend can be a partner that you can engage with. And then lastly, let me say, not just who do you know and who do you know who know people, but who do you not know? Who are some of the groups that you can reach out to and engage? One of my favorite things to look at is the second largest religious tradition or community within your network, region, whatever geographic boundary you're placing around the work. Sometimes those groups, as the second largest, not the first group you think of, but the second largest group, can be so excited that you reached out, that you wanted to connect with them, that they can be some of your strongest partners because they're excited that you engage them. So look at some of these different strategies. Ask who you already know or who in your organization knows. Like I said, I can guarantee in almost every organization, there's someone who has someone for whom religion and the religious community is important to them. Engage through those existing networks to bring up and connect to more groups in your community. Elizabeth, what were your thoughts?
So great thoughts, Ben. Took the words right out of my mouth, actually. But some additional ones. One of the things that we always said in my office, and I learned this 20 years ago from my mentor, who is still my mentor today, and she told me, get out of your office. Get out of your office. You have to actually go out into the community. So maybe for some of these health centers, maybe for an afternoon on a Friday, maybe once a month, every other week, however you can do your schedule, Leave your office, go out into the community, visit a community garden, visit a faith-based organization. It's the summertime, so there's a health fair and church fair every weekend, right? So to Ben's point, right, everyone knows somebody, right? The other thing is I am still old, very old school. I'm a journalist by trade. I believe in business cards. I always keep a stack of them handy because you can always pass those out because you never know when you've had a conversation and then you think, oh, I probably need to reach out to this person because something has come up. I actually have a Rolodex of cards so that in the event I need to reach out to someone, I can go through that Rolodex and, oh, I remember that person. So always have either a stack of business cards or even a simple Canva flyer. Everybody loves Canva, right? Canva Pro is the best investment ever if you don't have it. Create a small flyer with some information about who you are, your email address, your phone number, and maybe a couple of bullet points. But the biggest thing is just getting out of your office and really speaking to the community and not just speaking with them, but listening to what they are dealing with in their own zip code and their own house of worship, their own homes, right? So you might run into individuals who, haven't had a screening because they think that they can't afford it. Well, they don't know what programs are out there. You might run into someone who hasn't had a screening because, well, they don't have a vehicle or they don't know how to take public transportation or they don't have public transportation. But you have to listen to them and listen to their story, to what Ben has just talked about, to then understand where is their connection here. And oftentimes it may not even be you. You may not even be able to be you might not be this health center that they need, but you might be able to connect them with someone who can help them. And now here again, we are establishing and kind of building on this relationship.
Wow. Thank you. It looks like Mia, I don't know if it's okay if I unmute you, but you just put something in the chat that I think it would be great for people to hear. And anybody else that would like to speak. Oh, she said, sure. All right. Okay, Mia, I just unmuted you. Would you like to speak about community outreach, some of the outreach you conducted?
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes, now I can hear
Okay.
you.
Okay. I am a patient navigator at Roanoke Chowan Community Health Center in a small town here. We are a FQHC. We have a small program where we conduct outreach for colorectal cancer screening. So George, who is also our CHW, he's also on the webinar. We went out and visited local nutrition sites, and we discussed colorectal cancer screenings and how important it is to discuss cancer that is prevalent in your family and who may be eligible to be screened sooner because someone in your family was a first degree relative that was positive for cancer. So we did 3 nutrition sites and we had quite a few patients who did, give a call back to their primary care physicians to discuss ways that they could be screened.
I love that. Thank you for sharing, Mia.
Anyone else wanted to share or ask a question? But we do have someone who just put something in the chat.
Yeah, she says, for us, it has been important to find out what our partners want, even if that is not my initial goal focus, but tapping into their needs in hopes after the relationship are strengthened so that we can work towards the initiatives that we want to work on as well. That's amazing, Delaney. I appreciate you dropping that in the chat. I do want to give just a quick take. I know we're almost at time, so I'm going to do this really quickly. I try to, every time I do these webinars or talks, I try to give some takeaway items, right? So something you can to write down to use in your community. So real quick, number one, being able to communicate with communities and engaging. I say number one, provide an inviting space. Number two, create a safe space. Number three, talk to the community and not at the community. Number four, one size does not fit all, so customize your approach, which by the way, I will type all this up and send this out so that you all have it. Number five, allow a pathway for feedback. Number six, I've said it 3 times already, data is your friend. Number seven, engage with traditional and non-traditional partners. Number 8, be sure to embrace diverse lived experiences. Number 9, encourage the creativity in that communication, that collaboration. And number 10, because I'm a huge hip hop music fan, I always say stop, collaborate, and listen. Depending on what generation you're from, you know where that's from.
Well,
Thank
Elizabeth, let me jump in here and say, the thing I love to say is nothing about us without us is for us, right? And so if you're doing community outreach, but you're not engaging the community, and asking, how would you like to hear about this? How would you like to be part? Maybe to Elizabeth Point shared amazing examples of putting people on video, right? And having them share their story. Maybe your community outreach is the community outreaching to itself to tell their story to others about why cancer screening made a difference in their lives. And think about the ways that you can incorporate the community in your community outreach so that it's them telling their story to the rest of their community, so that you see more and more people getting involved in these opportunities. So, I think that a process of not talking at, but talking with, and you being a platform for your community to talk to your community can be that bottom-up strategy that might be the difference maker for the work you're doing.
Yes, thank you so much. Thank you all. So here is how to get in touch with our panel experts. And again, we're going to send a follow-up email. We want to do a round of applause to our experts today for such a great discussion. And this will not be the last time. We'll figure some out. We'll have them again. And so we do have some upcoming events, including this Thursday. We have an event this Thursday. We are hopping more again on community outreach, conversations, patient engagement. This is really patient engagement month with these webinars that we're hosting. So you're going to see a lot more webinars on how to engage your patients, how to have conversations with them, how to build relationships and trust. And you can see all the links are in the chat, and we will be sending emails with this information. So please look out for that. Again, thank you for attending. It was great conversation. Cannot wait to have another conversation like this in the future. If you have any comments or questions, let us know. We will be again sending a follow-up email afterwards. So if you have any questions from there, you can respond to that email. Thank you so much for joining us today, and have a great, great, great Tuesday.